All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And
Good morning.
yeah, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our Government Relations Council meeting. My name's Christine Schweiniger, and I'm your co-chair for today. You can all hear me as well, Yamilet?
Yes,
Wonderful.
sounds
Okay.
perfect.
Okay, and the time is 11:38. I don't know if that's the right time or not.
Yep, you're right.
Okay,
Yep.
I know, I didn't know if that's.
Yeah, you're right.
Okay. So we're gonna start with our introductions. You want to go with first who are online?
Yep. Yamilet, you're unmuted. We'll start with you. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Yamilet Valladolid. I'm the Director of Government and Community Affairs for Golden Valley Health Centers and Central Valley PACE.
Thank you. And Sarah.
Hello, everyone. Sorry I'm off camera, but I'm with NorCal NECA and happy to be here.
Thank you. And Mr. Williams, Councilman. You mute, unmute, mute, unmute. You're unmuted at the moment.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it was sign language.
Yeah, sign language.
Okay.
Jeremiah, if you want to unmute and come back in, feel free. And Todd, we're going to go over to you if that's okay.
Todd Aronson, CEO, Visit Modesto.
Okay, here I am. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday from the city of Modesto. Jeremiah Williams, Modesto City Council.
Thank you. Sorry, back to you, sir.
My name is Darren. I work for Sunbelt Rentals, do outside sales for our climate control division. Just kind of sitting in and seeing what everything's about.
Lovely, thank you.
Everybody, Jody Hayes, Stanislaus County Chief Executive Office, and look forward to sharing some information with you. Thanks for the invite.
Cecil Russell with Sylvan Financial, the graffiti museum.
Stephen Qualls, League of California Cities.
Kirsty Boyette Zacharias, Chairperson of the Chamber of Commerce.
I'm Trish Christensen, President and CEO. So we're going to go to you.
Chris Maxfield, Pathway Financial. Yeah, Office of Commerce. Excuse me, Justin Farkas representing Office of Supplement Black Office.
Destiny Suarez, representing Senator Alfredo Gill.
Hey, Joe Donald, the Pit Valley Commissions and
Patrick Schultz, the representative for Stanislaus County Board of Supervisors, Manny Greenwell.
Amy Collier-Carroll, Golden Valley Health Center's Chief Communications Officer.
Well, wonderful and welcome. Did we have time to go over the minutes? Would anyone like to make a motion to approve? And a second?
Second.
Okay, motion carries as is. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and go with our report outs. And we have our city. Jeremiah, are you wanting to give an update?
Let's move on to someone else just for a moment as I'm multitasking. That'd be great.
Okay, no problem. We can go with Juan Alanis.
Yeah, so, sorry. That's okay, I forgot the count's not going until later. Yeah, so I know last time we talked a little bit about some of the events that we've been attending, some of the things that we've been learning about our district and specifically in terms of agriculture and some of our public works, like our local irrigation districts. This month has been very capital heavy. We've been doing a lot in the district as well. But since the legislation deadline passed last month, we've really been working on ensuring that our bills move forward through the legislature and eventually make their way to the governor's desk to be signed. So we introduced 26 bills this year. We have a very broad and extensive bill package. So far, 3 of those bills have been heard by their respective committees, and all 3 of those have passed unanimously out of those committees. So just so you guys are aware, the first being Assembly Bill 1880. This is a bill that will protect minors from, on social media and being, not used, what's the word?
Predators.
Yeah.
Taken advantage of, I guess you could say, on social media. Assembly Bill 1839 is a, student grant program for prospective peace officers. And Assembly Bill 1927, which will provide grants for technical education instructors. That's what we have working, right now, really diving into, the realm of education and public safety. And, we'll be covering a wide range of topics, throughout the rest of our session.
Thank you. Destiny, did you want to provide an update?
Yeah, I can provide a quick update. So last week we did attend the city of Modesto State of Address. I just want to say how beautiful it was. Senator did bring quite a lot of her staff with her, almost our whole office was there. We enjoyed watching it, seeing the community really show up for the city of Modesto. So that was awesome. And then, as you all might know, we did just announce, well, we're still announcing for one of the years, and we do have one in this room, and I'm gonna put it on public notice. So we received a bunch of candidates across all 13 districts, and what we did was pick honorees within those districts, because there were so many, and we just couldn't just pick one. And so we had Adriana Garcia, Christina Magana, and Carol, who's sitting with us. Yeah.
Thank you. I've been honored.
Yes, and so she was nominated by Supervisor Gray Long with her, and how to honor her with her really quick resolution. So just look forward to that. And then Senator did just have SB 1028 now in Greenwich Association. I'm gonna get a little spiel on it. This was presented this week to the Government Organizations Committee. This will acknowledge the districts in rural California that they are facing challenges with the demand by the Type 47 liquor license. So this would be South Daytona, 70 and Mammoth Mountains. So this would basically allow more jobs and to support the rural communities. And then spring recess is coming up very soon. I believe it starts next week on the 21st. And so Senator will be doing a tribal tour. So if you can't get a hold of her, that is probably why, because she will be visiting a lot of different tribes in the district in California, again, to address the missing people. And then we are working on the PG&E still. We're working on a communications plan. So if their bills have increased since 2024, so Senator can take this on with it. And then also we did get a new scheduler. I felt like I had announcements, but sometimes it is hard. We did get a new scheduler in the Capitol, but I want to reemphasize, if you have any events, anytime you want to get in contact with the senator, you can always message us district staff first, because then we move it up the chain and we flag it if it's urgent, like if it's next day or something. So, but we do have a new schedule. Yeah. And then last but not least, our office is doing more of communications and pushing out like scholarships or programs that the community sends to us. So if your business or if your club or community, any group has a scholarship or a program that you need people to apply for or just be outreach, we've been posting those and it's been getting a lot of good feedback. I know, not taking credit for it, but Santa Claus Latino Chamber we did post their scholarships on our email blast, and they said they got from like 10 recipients to like 120. So,
Great.
very happy that also helped them push it out. So please let us know if you ever need that. You can always send it to me. And that's the end of my report.
I was about to tell you our scholarship fund is out there, but I don't know that I want to go to 100.
I know, right? Wow. That is incredible. And I don't know if anyone that attended, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Well, one thing, Adriana gave such a heartfelt
Yeah.
message for anyone that attended. And it was really special hearing her open up and be so genuine. So I thought it was a great recognition. Go ahead. Steve.
So this is for both your offices. What have you heard about what the governor or the legislature is going to do with all the huge deficit that we have? You got any?
I don't have an update.
So, yeah, some of the Melanies are no longer on the budget committee, so our review has shrank a little bit. Our opinion is less important until it comes to the floor. From my understanding, it's really at the will of the chairs of the individual subcommittees within the budget committee. And from my understanding, there's gonna be significant cuts across the board. I know that the Human Services Committee just appointed a new chair in the assembly, and they're expecting to make serious cuts. And my recommendation would be to get in touch with the committee, the subcommittee chairs on the services and the programs that you want to see kept in action through next year, because that's, I think it's gonna be a heavy influence on, it's gonna be constituent calls and outreach to the individual assembly members to make these decisions. So that's covered.
We're just, I know that, just real quick, I know that we're very concerned about them touching the funding for the homeless and affordable housing that they've been giving out. We've been trying for the last 2 years to get a ongoing source of funding, because the cities and counties set these programs up, and then if the money's taken away, they're the ones that are on the hook to continue the program to go. So we're just really concerned. That's our message we've been delivering, is that please just leave your hands off what you're already giving us, and then but I mean, I know it's gonna be a tough battle. It's a huge deficit to try to.
Yeah,
try
well,
to address.
I agree with you, and yeah, I know, I think the LAO, the Legislative Analyst Office, has even come out beyond the $67 billion mark. I think they're looking closer to $72 billion in terms of deficit. The governor's office is still convinced that number is like less than half of what LAO is proposing through various things. And now we also have the high-speed rail issue, where they're asking for an extra $100 billion to continue their project. That's already costing us like $3 million a day, that project going as it is. They're asking to dip into the rainy day fund as well. So we'll see how all those talks transpire. But things like district earmarks and things like that, I'm sure are going to take a significant hit, and as well as various services.
Thank you.
The mayor. Just reassuring you on the unhousing funding, after the state of the city finally told me specifically she was going home and doing her research papers so she can ensure that we continue funding for our unhoused communities, since those are really vulnerable funding resources. So just want to give you that reassurance. It's always on her mind, and she's looking into it and having us staff look into it. So
Thank
make
you.
sure to relay the message.
Yeah.
My question was on Prop 1, and it looks like it's like gonna pass by the Herald. Like, look, this morning, it's like 70,000 vote difference. How will that impact us locally?
Okay, so it's a very nuanced proposition. It's really interesting because the people supporting Proposition 1 dumped millions of dollars into supporting it. There's virtually no opposition to it, other than the outspoken conservatives like Minority Leader Senator Jones from San Diego region, and some other legislators on the more conservative end of the spectrum. And that bill has been very contentious. I mean, I think there's a real battle between the state and counties right now, who are the ones kind of facilitating these services. And the fear of that bill, which was laid out in your guys' sample ballots, is that a lot of the power is going to be transferred from the county to the states. So we don't really know what that's going to look like yet, and how smooth that process is going to be. That might be a better question for Mr. Hayes as those come out. And for BHRS as well, they'll have a better understanding of how that's all going to be playing on. But there is going to be a significant shakeup in how our behavioral health services are applied throughout the state and county.
When will they have the final call?
Oh, well, shoot, they still have like 27 days or something to count. So there's time. I
April
think-
2nd, right?
Yeah, something like that. I know Stanislaus County is near the end of their ballots. I think they only have about $5,000 left in Stanislaus. Merced, the other county that we represent, only has about 2,500 ballots remaining. So I expect it, at least in our region, to be finished and certified fairly soon. Now, Los Angeles County, Orange County, Riverside, Alameda, where there's millions of people and millions of ballots turned in.
So it's out. I can speak a little bit just in terms of local impacts, I'll speak very broad. So, not as much as I need to know about it. Generally, our community in Stanislaus County, particularly our behavioral health department, this wasn't an initiative pushed by our office, but they really saw the need to reprioritize funding several years ago and move funding more towards acute and seriously mentally ill populations. And what that had the effect of doing was unfunding or less support for some of the programs that were operating, that were all good programs, great service providers and so forth, but they weren't necessarily as focused on the most intense populations that generally you're going to see on the streets and so forth. So we made that switch a couple of years ago, and we've been implementing ever since then. Prop 1 does largely requires most other counties to do something similar. So it's not as if we meet every criteria of Prop 1 today. That's not what I'm saying. However, we're already on that path. It's going to be an easier lift for us to get where that thinking takes you and their strategies go than it will be for other communities. And then, of course, there's some expectations for housing components. There's outcome reporting. There's all kinds of other stuff involved. So I don't want to oversimplify it other than to say that I feel pretty good about how we're positioned to implement what's in Prop 1. We were already doing much of this on.
Thank you. Jeremiah, did you have something you wanted to say, or we skipped
Yes,
over?
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. I know things are moving along quite quickly. City of Modesto, first of all, is proud that we have the opportunity to have 4 more years for our mayor, our current mayor, Sue Sawalin. We had a great meeting the other day at the State Theater, which was the state of the city. Just real quick, what we've been doing, we did approve the budget for next year for the Measure H fund. The park improvements are $9.4 million. The public safety is $6.3 million. Fire and emergency medical services are $4.1 million. And this is for 24-25. Forestry, $2.3 million. Homelessness, $3.6 million. Sidewalks, we've allocated $1.8 million. Deferred maintenance, $356,000. Deferred maintenance is a really deficit that we've had for many, many years, and we're cracking at it the best way we can. Lastly, but not least, flight, we are allocating $245,000 for that. There's more, but time is slipping away, and I would like to hear from Jody. So that will conclude my report.
Thank you, Jeremiah. And we did have 2 more that, or 1 more that walked in. Andrew, do you want to introduce yourself real quick? I didn't want to leave you out.
Yes, no, thank you for that. Andrew Mendoza with Kaiser Permanente. Thank you.
You're welcome. And John, you're on and joining us today as well.
Yeah, sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I am pleased to be able to attend, and obviously what Jody has to say, and Prop 1 affects us here at the mission as well. And we're just happy to always be collaborating with the city and the county, both on homelessness.
Wonderful, thank you. Do we have anyone from District 13? No, okay. No. Oh, we do. Oh, sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well, thank you, everybody. It's great to be here with you all. Just want to give you a quick update on Congressman Wood today. Last week, the House Representative passed a Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2024. That's House Resolution 4366. And then that was some community funding, and that included $26.3 million at funding at Congressman Wood's request to meet critical constituent and community needs throughout our district, all the way from Lathrop to Chowchilla, Coalinga, and everywhere in between. So Congressman Duarte was pleased to join a bipartisan group of Democrat and Republican lawmakers to pass this legislation to fund the federal government for 24. And not only it cuts wasteful government spending by about $9 billion, but it, while preserving critical programs, but also includes the $26 million at Congressman Duarte's request of funding for infrastructure, law enforcement, roads, and water projects within our district. And just a couple of the ones that within some Stanislaus County projects was included $3.5 million for the city of Modesto's 911 call center project, $1.2 million for the city of Turlock sewer extension project, and $1 million for the City of Turlock stormwater infrastructure projects, and there are many more throughout the district and throughout California's 13th congressional district. And then another one, I want to switch sides a little bit. Congressman Duarte led a letter last week with both his Republican and Democratic colleagues, urging Commissioner Cliff, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, to add Valley Fever to the Food and Drug Administration Priority Review Voucher Program. Valley Fever is a public health threat, and it's vital threat. It's vital that we invest in finding effective treatments and preventive measures. By obtaining the designation, we can expedite the research efforts into the disease and protect thousands of Californians, including those of Congressman Duarte's constituents within the California's 13th district. The vast majority of this infection occurs only in certain parts of Arizona and California, particularly the southern San Joaquin Valley. And the disease has been starting to large constituents, and Congressman Duarte does believe that an incentive in the form of priority review voucher would provide necessary.
I'm everywhere. How you doing? Bring it in, bring it in, bring it in, bring it in.
Jeremiah, you need to mute again.
Let me,
That is the end of my report.
Sorry.
On that note.
Yes.
Councilmember Ricky.
Oh, and then, Councilmember Ricky, did you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, yeah. I'm Chris Ricky. I'm the council member representing Modesto's fabulous District 3.
Wonderful. Kelly? Thank
Good
you for
afternoon,
joining us.
everybody. My name is Kelly Talent. I'm the senior property manager for Vintage Fair Mall.
Thank you. Hopefully I'm not missing anyone. District 5, is there anyone here? Okay. Do we have anyone from AT&T? I don't see anyone. And Comcast? Okay. And Stephen, do you have an update for us?
So I love hearing from Jody, so I'm gonna go through this quickly. Can you put my? Should keep my report up.
Oh, I'm not sure it's up yet.
I think he's,
I'll find it.
yeah, I think.
So anyway, as was mentioned earlier, last day to introduce bills was the 16th. There's over 5,000 bills. A lot of them are just spot bills, so just holding the place for a future bill. But something I'd like to talk to you about is e-commerce. You know, that's a big concern to a lot of our cities. So there's a number of bills going through the legislature right now to address the distribution of the sales tax money. We have a sales tax working group made up of city managers and other people from around the state of California. And our suggestions are that any bill not impact current tax sharing agreements, and also that they can't be in perpetuity, that maximum of 20 years. There's a 50% tax sharing agreement cap on it. And then we create a database so that people would know what the tax agreements are. There is one bill I'd like to highlight, SB 1494. And this one is say that no new sales tax agreements after the first of this year. The current agreements have to end by January 1st of 2030. The agreements must be posted on the NBC website. But pretty much just nothing short of an outright ban, and it's not what we're looking for. We have a lot of distribution centers, you know, in our area. This, they're looking at a 2/3 urgency vote because the author believes that there, with their state budget, there's a need to immediately address this problem. And there's a lot of questions we have about the constitutionality of this. Property taxes. So we know the ADUs, accessory dwelling units, have become very popular down the state. So this 1164 would say that in 2025, we would exclude all ADUs from property tax collecting for 15 years. The author says there's a need to incentivize building of ADUs, but in actuality, it's in the last 2 years, 20% of the permits pulled in the state of California have been for ADUs. If we would lose between $7 and $8 billion a year in property tax up and down the state, if this were effect, this obviously affects cities, counties, and also school districts to have a share of the property tax. Public safety, 2934. This is say if somebody would steal more than $950 in one incident, then it could be a felony as it is now. But this allows it to go across jurisdictions. Currently, if somebody steals $400 in Stanislaus, $600 in San Joaquin County, they can't be charged with a felony. This allows you to combine them and be able to charge them as a felony. This is brought forth by the district attorneys of the state of California. Sorry. This is SB 22. This is from the district attorney. So this brought up last year. So pretty much it's saying that if somebody's either convicted, plead guilty or no contest to selling fentanyl and other hard drugs, then they will be given documentation saying that if they were to get caught again and convicted, that they could be, and somebody, no, I'm sorry, if somebody dies from the sale of the hard drugs, they could be convicted of murder or manslaughter. Now, I didn't realize it, I just learned this is already done for drunk driving. If somebody gets a drunk driving, that they are given documentation, so it's just like they do with drunk driving, that's kind of, I said why public safety last year wouldn't let it go through, but public safety has a new chair, a new member, so hoping there's gonna be a different approach to fentanyl. Grants Pass. So Grants Pass, so you're familiar with the Boise decision that cities can't keep people from camping in public areas. Grants passed an ordinance saying that they couldn't use any shelters in their public places like boxes and stuff. The district court said that was violated the Boise decision. So it was appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to hear the case. We've written amicus brief, as have CSAC and other organizations supporting Grants Pass and that. We'll skip over AT&T, skip over the budget. Let's see that. Yeah, that's it. Okay, forget about all that.
Thank you, Stephen, for that.
Real
And
quick,
then,
I'm interested in they, Stephen, but was there anything on homelessness? And there was legislation being looked at for, in terms of homeless and not being able to be certain distance from schools, hospitals, certain other facilities.
I'm not sure. Okay. I mean, as far as I know, they can't do it if it's on public property.
They have some
Yeah,
over
but
here.
I was just, I know
Like
that,
smoking,
I don't know
right?
of any this year, but Assemblyman Hoover did have one last year that did not make it to what you're talking about. Camping in parks and within certain distances of schools that did not make it out already. And that wasn't even like, that was only for like greater than 3 days or something like that, is legislation. And now that bill didn't make it out of committee, but it sounds like there might be something else.
I believe there's something else. I'll connect with you.
Yeah, there was some research that included certain types of property. I think hospitals.
Mhm.
Well, that's private property, so it should be. Listen,
We get them. Oh, yeah, we can. Right next to Tracy, next to, right next to.
Okay,
So it's
yeah.
supposed to be a certain distance. Wait, she said Tracy, yeah. Right there. Here in the desk. Right there. Yeah.
Trevin, could we ask you to introduce yourself?
Right there, they got ER right there. Good afternoon, Trevor Barber, City of Modesto Economic Development Manager.
thank you for joining us. Before we, also, is there any other business announcements before we introduce our speaker? Kelly, do you have anything?
No, ma'am. Thank you, though.
Okay.
Hi, good. I'd like to share one really quick thing. The supervisor, along with a lot of the local elected officials, as well as some community members, were able to host Lieutenant Governor of California, Eleni Mesa-Paus, her last name, Kounalakis. She was in town on Wednesday down at the intermission. We hosted a significant amount of roundtables from different groups of ag and water, law enforcement, healthcare, a lot of community and county partners as well, elected officials, things like that. It was a very, very good day, a very full day. And Lieutenant Governor was very excited to be in Stanislaus County. She was able to go down to see CSU Stanislaus. And so Chairman Graywall was able to host her along with many other members of the community. It was a really good day for Stanislaus County. So one little piece of information I thought would be important to share with all of you guys as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I don't see MID Dana here, so we don't have anyone from there. And it doesn't look like we have any other business announcements. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Jody Hayes, our Chief Executive Officer. His topic today is economic development and housing in Stanislaus County. And feel free to come on up.
Thank you all for having me. I think I've been here before, and I'm gonna try not to be repetitive for those of you who suffered through listening to me last time. I brought some materials. I just picked a little small topic that's super easy to talk about.
Yeah.
All of economic development and housing. So, you know, I do want to talk about some very specific initiatives we're working on, but also just kind of the global landscape for those two really, really big picture issues. I would like to start by just, for those of you who don't know me, I've been Chief Executive Officer for Stanislaus County for, I think, almost 7 years now, like 6.5 years, I think
Wow.
it is. And prior to that, I had some experience. I've been with the county, I guess now for about 24 years or so. I'm sorry, it's hard with that math. When I say things like this, people are like, how does the guy balance a $1.1 billion budget? I promise you, we have smart people back at the office who do math. I can't even tell you how long I worked for the county. So, yeah, you know, I've really enjoyed the opportunity. It's such a privilege to sit in that chair and work with such great leadership, not just within the county organization, but out in the community. But what I wanted to start by telling you is what my considerations were for even considering a position like that. I really enjoyed working in my prior county role. I had a great position in the chief executive office, really enjoyed it. But I did come to the conclusion that if I was given the opportunity to be CEO, that I wanted, number one, to do it for a long period of time, if allowed. And, you know, I wanted to sit in this position for like a decade or something. And usually the turnover, the shelf life on a job like this it's usually less than a decade. Usually it's a 5 or 6 year type thing, somewhere 4 to 6 years in most communities, somewhere around there for a variety of reasons. But I was just kind of uniquely positioned in my career that I could maybe do a long stretch. And to me, that was enticing. Well, what do you do in a position like this if you can do it for a long period of time? And so I came up with a pitch for the Board of Supervisors at the time. And I let them know, look, I'm from this community. Everybody I'm working with would know that. But for those of you who don't, this is my hometown, Modesto. We've moved around quite a bit. So I've lived in various areas of town and spent some time away from Modesto. But mainly this is it. Graduated from Downey High School and Modesto Junior College. And, you know, I'm like a lot of people that have grown up in the community and tried to lift themselves up out of whatever situations they grew up in. So it's me. And what the value proposition that I pitched to the Board of Supervisors was, if you allow me to do this job, I want you to know that I'm going to spend as much time as I possibly can working on 2 issues. And those 2 issues are jobs and housing. And so then it was, okay, why? Why do you want to work on those 2 issues? And for me, I really don't think there are any other issues that if you can, you know, shape over a long period of time that are more important to the fabric of any community. It really, I mean, communities are based on what does it cost to live there? And what is the income of the individuals who are there? And when that is out of balance, your quality of life suffers across the board. So no matter what you're trying to do as a community, no matter what your goals are, if you do not have a balance of employment opportunities and income opportunities, I know there are some retirement communities out there that just have a lot of wealth because they're all retirees. That's not us, and it's never going to be us. So if we do not have a balance of employment opportunities with housing that is commensurate with those wages, we're all going to suffer. Our future generations are going to suffer. They're just never going to achieve you know, those dreams that we all want for not just our generations, but for the future. So that was my big pitch. And luckily enough, 5 members of the Board of Supervisors said, yeah, we'd like to do that. And even subsequent members of the board that have come on have been very supportive of these same concepts and so forth. Now, I didn't expect that just a couple of years into my tenure that we would have a global pandemic. And at the time, I was the director of emergency services for the county. So a lot of my time just got diverted and we weren't able to do a lot of the work that I hoped to do right out of the gate. However, I'm very happy to tell you today that post-COVID, we have worked furiously to try to get back to these 2 issues. And it's not just me. I don't want any of my comments to act as if I'm the one doing all this work. I am not. I am a partner. I'm a cheerleader for a lot of really brilliant people that are in this community that have deep passion for the same things that I have passion. So I'm just the one who's here presenting some of that work for you today.
Can I interrupt you just for a second? Can you go a little more
Can
off
you go this way?
center? Yep, just so
Pretty
the
obvious.
projector.
You know, your forehead became like the
Forehead, the whole thing. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, perfect. Thank you, sir.
So that's what we're going to talk about today. As it relates to economic development, the first thing I want to talk about is a project. Most of you have heard it. You've probably seen various presentations of it. Some of you in this room are actually engaged in developing this. So I'm going to go through some things, and if it's repetitive, apologies. But what I'm going to get to are the latest updates on where we're at with some of these projects, and invite any of you who have worked on some of our more recent work groups to chime in as well if you'd like to add any additional information from your perspective. So the project we're referring to is Stanislaus 2030. I'm actually going to pass around copies of our investment blueprint. If you already have one, you can still take this one if you like, or just leave it when you're done, because it's always interesting reading. There you go. Step in, pass them around. Thank you. I bring in gifts. Glossy page gifts. So the easiest way to understand Stanislaus 2030 is that we start with a premise and a question of, if, pick a billionaire came to Stanislaus County and said, I want to invest $1 billion in your community to support your economic future and well-being. Where do you want to spend the money? 2 or 3 years ago, we didn't have an answer to that question. Now, we would immediately get together, we come up with good ideas, and some of us thought we had some good ideas already on the shelf and so forth. But the truth is, we didn't have a comprehensive answer to that question. And we noticed that other communities had already moved forward building those scenarios. Fresno particularly was one that we saw. So I was very inspired when I went to a presentation from an effort called Fresno Drive. It was a California Economic Development Conference, and the governor came in. And the Fresno Drive work was impressive and so forth. What was really impressive is when the governor steps in the room and says, we're going to give $60 million to Fresno. That immediately got our attention. We said, wow, there is real money, not just state money or federal money, but philanthropic money, private investments, all those things. They all generate out of a project plan like this, a comprehensive plan for community investment, particularly one that's rooted in equity and understanding that you want all members of your community to benefit from the economy and have equal access to the economy. So that's what we said about building. The process was very extensive. So if you go through this, the first few pages, you're going to see information on the process. You're literally going to see, an extensive executive committee, but literally hundreds of people who participated in various parts of this effort, either directly through the forums that we put on and they voluntarily came, or through community engagement and outreach when we hired firms to go out into the community and poll the community and to seek information and to report back up to the executive committee. So hundreds of people built that blueprint and that investment. The findings, most of them were not surprising. A couple of them, I think, were a little surprising. I mentioned a couple. You'll see the findings when you get to, I think it's like pages 8 or 9. I get that right. I've been doing this a while. Pages 8 and 9. When you look particularly on the left side, page 8, you'll see that over half of the county's population is struggling to make ends meet. So we brought on research firm Brookings, and Brookings did a fabulous job of looking at the economy in ways that we previously had not, to be honest with you. But they also did a really deep dive on what does it cost to live here. And it's not just, what does it cost to just make sure every bill is paid each month, but what does it take for a family to be economically self-sufficient, where maybe they have a little savings, they're saving for the future, they have some retirement savings. That baseline, that level of economic security that we would all want for ourselves and our family, Brookings gave us the data, and they brought to our attention. And it wasn't a surprise to learn that over half the county's population was struggling to meet those standards. I think I was kind of surprised on the mix of job quality in our local community, because I know that there were a lot of employers that had good quality jobs that they couldn't fill with qualified candidates. So when you look on page 9, you'll see what the good jobs gap is. And they basically brought to our attention that only about 1/3 of the existing jobs in Stanislaus County meet the definition of either promising or good jobs. And those are jobs that are generally either allow someone to be at that economic sustainable level or have them on a path to get there. But about 2/3 of the jobs in Stanislaus County didn't even meet those thresholds. So I think that was a little surprising, knowing that employers have good jobs and they're looking for employees to fill those jobs. So immediately, that there are some disconnects and gaps in the system. Back on page 8, you're not going to see these specific numbers, but I did some additional breakdown with the team, because ultimately the Brookings team came to us and said, well, what do you want to do about this? What do you hope to achieve through all of this work? So we had to have some kind of goal. And our goal was, we said, well, what would it take to lift half of the children in Stanislaus County out of struggling households and put them into households with economic sustainability? What would that take? And so Brookings answered the question. There are about 90,000, there are about 145,000 kids in Stanislaus County. Okay, at the time we were doing this work. About 90,000 of them are growing up in struggling families. So those are essentially what the numbers are. One of the numbers that was really surprising is that 85% of those kids in struggling families have at least one adult working in the home. These are working families. It's not maybe that traditional old school thought of, well, yes, they're struggling because nobody's working in the home. They are working. They're just not meeting the standards that are necessary to live in our local area. So we set the goal of what would it take to get, half of those kids, which is 45,000 kids, into economic sustainability. It turns out it takes 40,000 new good or promising jobs, but basically 40,000 good jobs. That's what it takes to lift. It's almost a 1-to-1 ratio. For every good job we can create in our community or lift up in our community, we bring one child out of economic difficulty. So that is the goal. And that's what the executive committee said. Okay, well, that's the goal. Let's try to do that. And now go on to what is our best work and what does the research tell us we need to do to try to support those things. So I'm going to briefly discuss several initiatives that have been launched since that report was published. The county has definitely come in and funded a lot of the initiatives. They're laid out for you in the investment blueprint. The answers to that billionaire question, they're laid out here. They don't equal $1 billion, but to be honest with you, our follow-up work probably suggests we could spend a full billion if we rewrote this report today because we've done more work. But you can see as you thumb through there, what are the investment requests? What are the areas where we would make these strategic investments? The Board of Supervisors, we essentially created 2 lanes to follow up this work. One lane is to just monitor the entire, everything you see in there, but to really focus in on 4 particular areas. One is supporting access to childcare. And what can we do about that? Childcare is clearly identified in this report as an economic development issue. Okay. You have a lot of qualified individuals who are not in the workforce today because they're taking care of children. So we wanted to look and see what can we do with childcare. We wanted to particularly look at the small business ecosystem. What does it take to operate a small business in Stanislaus County? And what would it take for us to become the best place in California to operate and scale a small business? So we wanted to do that. And then we wanted to look at workforce training programs. Back to that thing I mentioned earlier, how we have open jobs in the community that are unfilled. So why do we have those gaps? And what can we do to fill those gaps and lift up skills? We had a subset of that. That's the 4th effort. And it was particularly around supporting our agricultural workers, our farm workers, and recognizing that there is rapid technology improvement occurring in the agricultural workspace. And what can we do to try to support farm workers and their skills to try to upgrade their skill level? So those were the 4 areas that we have set about working on in lane 1. Lane 2, and so that's largely, lane 1 is largely about supporting the existing economy and trying to make sure everybody has equal access to the existing economy. Lane 2 is about creating a whole new version of our economy and a whole new traded sector around bioindustrial manufacturing. Brookings brought to our attention that we are the #1 place in the United States in which to bring on a new sector that has rapidly emerged, not just in this country, but across the entire planet, on taking waste products, and for us mainly agricultural waste products, and turning them into useful things. So things that are currently built with petrochemicals today, we are looking at ways in which you can build those things through biology. You can manufacture items that are better for the planet. Who doesn't want to do that, right? Who doesn't want to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and at the same time find useful purposes of waste products that many times may be harming the environment in the existing way that they're disposed of. So that is what the entire, what we call biocircular economy is about. And we have a whole lane just focused on that. I'll mention a couple of things more specific about what we're doing there. I'm going to give you a quick rundown on the things that have popped up so far related to each one of these initiatives. And then I'm going to pivot. I'm going to talk about housing for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to do Q&A. Okay, so that's my plan. So kind of here's some of the rapid fire information I wanted to share with you. I'll start with childcare. This is going to be the first one that you see land in terms of our process right now is we seed funded some pilot work to go out and see, okay, what real investment needs to happen. And it's not just the county making investments. We're part of the investor approach, but you know, where do we actually, I mean, the blueprint was developed, but now it's to test those theories and where should we start to write checks to make investments? So that's where we're at today. That's what we're working on now. The very first one you're going to see land is this report that's called From Childcare Desert to Oasis. And this should be out within the next month. And this is really, really fascinating. Patrick mentioned earlier that our Lieutenant Governor, Kalnakis, did I get that right? Kalnakis. I'm gonna have to. There's a really good chance she becomes governor.
Yeah.
Like 4 feet from her, I can't.
Yeah, we didn't work on it.
She got a preview of this the other day, just because we had one small thing in here that we wanted to bring to her attention, and there were a few of you in the room. We just wanted to bring one small thing to her attention about this. And we wound up spending most of our entire session, almost 1 hour with her, talking just about this. Very, very passionate about it. And it's no wonder. It's a very, very passionate concept. Here's the simple truth. There are a lot of people who could be working today, but they're not because they love their kids. And they want to make sure that their kids are safe. And if they had an affordable place for their children to be safe, they would do that and then they would go to work. We know that through lots of research. So we came alongside a firm called Nurture, and we are so lucky to have found these folks. They're very, very expert and entrepreneurial in how they want to solve this problem. They basically created an app, phone app, and they created a system, a very clear and easy system for any person to follow to become a childcare entrepreneur, to start your own home-based childcare. We did some seed funding so that they could make sure that the program was advertised, as well as provide a small subsidy, about $2,500 per participant on the back end, to make sure that once they were licensed, that they had whatever capital support they needed to make some improvements to their homes and do things. And that initial pilot has been very, very successful. It's been successful enough that now we believe that we can go from pilot mode to investment mode. And that's why you're going to see this report get released in some ways to the community over the next month. Probably won't come to our board for a few months, but it'll be out there circulating if you're in that role. So here's what you're going to see when you eventually see this report. We're going to try to, we need to get to about 12,000 childcare slots. We need to create 1,500 new childcare businesses. So we're thinking probably 1,000 new ones, 500 upgraded childcare businesses that are already in existence that start to take on more kids and so forth. If you just break that down, essentially, we're going to try to get on a path of generating about 150 slots per year. That is doable. Right now, we're generating far less than like 10 a year, something to that degree. We have found that there is a robust system of subsidies available for childcare. We will, if we're successful, we will likely break that bank and need the state to consider additional investments and subsidies. So we try to call that out, that like our model relies on current levels of funding. But if we're successful in onboarding this many new childcare programs, we're going to break the bank. And that's a good thing. Right now in our community, we have investment dollars or subsidy dollars that are given to the Stanislaus County Office of Education each year. Right now, we're underspending $10 million of subsidies. So there's $10 million of child care subsidies that are going unspent in Stanislaus County. So we're going to work to fix that gap and then see what we can do beyond that gap. Based on that business model, we've identified that a child care entrepreneur can earn about $70,000 per year. So while on one hand, we're trying to fill the need of childcare for individuals in the community, on the other hand, we're creating a new business with a living wage job for the entrepreneur. And by the way, they get great tax breaks as well, lots of write-offs. I wish I had those write-offs. So, this process that Nurture has developed, they can really streamline the permitting process of how long it takes. They've had some examples where they've gotten the permits down to about 44 days from start to finish to get through everything and actually get to a licensed shop. Those numbers are really, really off the charts. The average is closer to about 84 days or so. But you can do it real fast if needed, based on the design that they put in. And then as of earlier this month, I just want to give you some of the basic numbers. We've had about 31 folks go through training. These are multilingual platforms. All of this is in English and Spanish. A large portion of our participants are Spanish speaking. And that's because we've done targeted outreach in targeted zip codes where the needs are the greatest. And you'll see that all in the report once you read it. So we've got about 31 folks in the training. We've had 21 new businesses licensed in Stanislaus County just on this pilot. And today, there are 17 childcare businesses operating today because we did this. And that's just at the pilot phase. So we are convinced with more investment, not just county, but other investments as well, that we can expand this scope quite a bit. The one thing we asked the Lieutenant Governor for was, it turns out there's only one inspector to inspect childcare businesses, and you can't open until you're inspected. There's only one inspector between like something crazy like Fresno and Stockton.
Yeah,
Something like that. It was
super
really crazy. So who better to ask than the Lieutenant Governor and say, hey, you think you could get some more inspectors? Her response was, she took my copy of the report, that she had a copy, but she wanted another one. And she said, I want to give this to the first partner team, right? Jennifer Newsom. I'm like, well, hold on, that's a draft. I was like trying to slow her down. Like, please don't start it's draft.
He literally was doing that. No, remember, it's draft, it's draft.
I'm in bed reading it at night, and then she thinks it's not final yet. It just went really fast with her, and she actually started discussing proposed legislation that she wants to support this effort in our community to make sure our community is successful with this, to then try to do something statewide. We had no idea, but childcare is one of the #1 passion issues in life. We had no idea. It was the first thing we discussed on our economic development pitch.
And
So a couple of you were there.
Yeah,
Go ahead and share.
I'll step in on this one. Christy and I were invited to sit in this specific group. And watching the conversation as Amanda Hughes was presenting this piece of it, to literally be in a moment where the Lieutenant Governor is moved to emotion, choked up, silent, and the room was like, what's happening right now? And Bill Lyons leans over and goes, are you all right? Like that was unexpected for him as well. And her first comment when she caught her breath was, no one talks about this. This is the first time I've ever heard a county talk about this, and that they look at it here as not just home daycare because you need a place for your kid. It's starting businesses, and the entrepreneurial spirits being a part of that whole concept is just amazing. That moment was just amazing to be a witness to.
It was a unique one. In government, we do all kinds of stuff, and we're like, yeah, someday this is gonna, spark something. And that day, you just saw all these sparks like boom. And I was reminded, like, she's legit wants to be governor and has an opportunity to do it, and she will forever know of how passionate we are about these things, and that we're a place that is kind of leads with this kind of economic development as well as caring spirit for our community. So
And in her kind of due diligence of thinking in the moment, she said, well, where else is this being done? What about LA? What about this? And they can honestly stand and say it's not being done like this anywhere. So then she led later to, well, then how do we make you guys the model to scale others up for others? So it's an amazing time.
somehow I think we're gonna get more than one inspector about.
I think so too.
I can't guarantee you much about what will ever come out of Sacramento, no offense. That I'm pretty sure. Okay. So I want to speed up a little bit, and I want to talk about our support for the small business ecosystem. Here's our goal and vision there. We want Stanislaus County to be the best place in the state of California to start or scale a small business. That's the goal, okay? So how do you do that? Well, you got to get a lot of smart people in the room. And I know the chamber's been actively involved in this. We really appreciate your guys' involvement. Not just the Modesto Chamber, but other chambers as well. Our financial institutions, local financial institutions have come to the table as well. And we brought in some real experts that have proven success in other regions in the country, helping develop these ecosystems that are really, really supportive of not just starting, but scaling small businesses into mature businesses that are offering good quality jobs, that are bringing economic growth in a way that you don't have if that person, that entrepreneur doesn't take those chances, right? You think about some of the major businesses in our community, every one of them started with some entrepreneurs who took risk and chance. We want to make sure that we have an environment here where anyone who has that same spark, interest, a great idea, a great concept, that is not just going to serve the residents of our community, but residents outside of the community. That's when the real wealth develops, when you're serving outside of the community, that they find that this is the best place to do it and that their idea doesn't die just for a lack of support. So that's what this whole effort is about. If we're successful, you're going to find lots of support systems for small businesses. You're going to see capital pathways that have not been available historically in the past. You're going to see mainly like our credit unions operating as community development financial institutions. They've already signed up to do that. They've kind of gotten themselves regulatorily in position to do that. But now we need to bring in capital to actually use those as funnels. You'll see them working together so that the credit unions aren't necessarily competing in this space, but they're identifying what's our best usage here and what's your best usage. None of that happens without this type of coordinated effort. So that's what's happening there. Trish, is there anything, I know there are a lot of partners involved in this and you've been involved. Is there anything you'd like to add or your reflections on the meetings you've been in?
Well, I'll sort of share on Beam Circular in particular. We hosted Karen for our Stanislaus Green Team meeting about a month ago. And we only had a handful of people come, but we did record it and it is on our website. So if you want to hear her do her overview of that whole concept, you'll get a lot of insight from listening to that. She spoke for about 45 minutes, I believe. So you kind of get a good vibe from her as to what that looks like. One of the things that Jody just mentioned that I'll touch on is it's also become more and more prevalent and impressive how much partnership is being done. So as organizations and partners are not competing or replicating, but supporting. So we're not pulling things apart and dividing, we're conquering together, which is amazing. And that speaks to the credit unions working together. We sat at a big meeting over at Valley First a week or so ago, 2 weeks ago, maybe. And they, having Moxie sit next to Valley First Credit Union, they chit chatted the whole day. They're brainstorming together. It's just, it's impressive.
Thank you for that. The data that we're tracking, because this is just stuff that you don't learn unless you use these processes. This report will probably, in these efforts, will be about a month behind the childcare one. So we're landing these planes, childcare in the coming month, and then small business ecosystem, and then talent development and workforce, that I'll talk about in a second. But I'm tracking, we have about 22,000 businesses in the community. 85% have less than 9 employees. I was really surprised by that. I was surprised. And for those of you who are more affiliated with the chamber and knowledgeable, you probably knew that was exactly what was going to come out of it. But that number did surprise me. 85% have less than 9 employees. They really are, so it winds up being about a third of our local workforce, like 77,000 jobs, all depend on small businesses, right? So it's a big part of what we do, and look forward to that group coming forward. I have some other materials. If you guys have questions, I can refer to them and talk a little bit more. On the opposite end of the small businesses is an effort that we have to support our manufacturing industry. Manufacturers are generally developing goods that are sold outside of the community. Those are what we call traded sector jobs. There's, it's a product leaving the community and it's a dollar coming back into the community. That is the gold mine of economic development. It's great to have locally serving businesses and so forth, but you really need to be anchored with industries that sell things outside and bring dollars back in. That's how you benefit your local population. So our manufacturing anchor institutions, they are really front and center at that economic development, or that economic growth and potential. So we understand from them clearly that they cannot fill the jobs that they have today in many cases, and they're very worried about the jobs that will be available in the next
5 years and the ability to fill those jobs. So we have created this partnership to come alongside the manufacturing industry. We've brought all the program providers, those folks who provide educational programming, whether it's at the community college level, or workforce development programs and so forth, some of which the county operates. We brought them all to the table so that the manufacturers, and this is, if you go to the best economic regions and the best economic growth stories in the country, you know, I would encourage you can look up like East Mississippi State Community College. I didn't go there, but they're like one of my favorite, but next to JC, that's the best community college in the country. And the reason is because they have aligned themselves. They are completely intertwined with the local business industry. That's completely intertwined. So when local business needs something and they see something that they need in the workforce, that community college is pivoting on a dime. They're creating new programming and they're producing workforce and they're letting their students know, if you can come complete these, we will get you a good job right over here. It's waiting for you. We know this because that industry helped us informed on these training programs. That's also enabling them to attract new employers. They are the most successful, they call them the Golden Triangle region. It's one of the most successful economic development growth stories in our country is in East Mississippi State next to the community college there because of these reasons, all driven by workforce development and training. And when you have new employers sniffing out a community, they want to know about the workforce. It's like the number one thing they're looking for. Yes, they want amenities and all the nice stuff. They want to know about the workforce. This effort is intended to align everyone around what's needed and then deliver the training. And then to set up a system going forward where it's not just we're doing this on an ad hoc basis, but it's built into our DNA. This is how we operate here. All of our workforce training programs operate with industry-informed programming. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. A couple of stats that I can share with you that I know some of the partners involved, just so you get a sense of what the concerns are. 20 years ago, age 55 and plus only represented 15% of the workforce population for our manufacturers. So 20 years ago, 15% of the folks working in the manufacturing place were 55 plus, right? Kind of nearing retirement. Now it's 27%. And they know that a lot of those folks are going to walk out. Okay, so that's one of the big calls, sense of urgency for that group. I just want to mention, because we really appreciate the employers who are driving this. This is employer driven. We're enabling the room. We're getting everybody together, but the employers are heavily involved. So it's Foster Farms, E.J. Gallo, Bronco Winery, Frito-Lay, Duarte Trees, G3, Plastipac, along with Pacific Southwest Container, Delicato, and then obviously some of those folks you would expect to be there, MJC, our own county workforce development department, and Opportunity Stanislaus. And if I've missed anybody, I really, really apologize. They have several kind of deep dive workshops that they've committed to. So every one of those employers is on a team working together, and they're literally getting in the room for half-day sessions, multiple half-day sessions to say we need to solve this problem. That's really impressive when you can get the private sector to commit that much time to solve the problem. So we're excited for that. I want to mention the Farm Worker Resource Training Program that we've been working on. We partnered with, it's one of those classic examples. You don't have to build something new if there's something that already works. And that's this case. We partnered with Central Valley Opportunity Center, CVOC. For decades, the CVOC has been providing workforce training programs to farm workers in the local community. They also provide social supports, all kinds of training and so forth. It's not just, you know, ESL classes or something like that. They do all kinds of stuff. I was really impressed to learn about all the programming that they do. They have general office training. They have culinary training programs, welding, industrial maintenance programs, retail, truck driving. They do weatherization training to help you understand how to weatherize a house or install solar systems, all those kinds of things. Their training programs are generally 4 to 22 weeks. And here's what they've proven. They have the data for a long period of time to prove that if someone goes through their training program, on average, their median wages will increase between $6,000 to $12,000 per year. That's what they're delivering for their participants. So they're relatively short training programs. And if you go through it, you're going to elevate your wages.
The other thing that I was really surprised about is this isn't about necessarily employees who are, or people who are unemployed coming in and getting a new job. Over half of their population are people who are incumbent workers where they're staying where they're employed. It's just that they want to increase their skill levels and provide more value to the employer and earn a higher wage. So that's a win for the employer and it's a win for their employee as well. So once we learned about all of this, the County Board of Supervisors supported the expansion of their project. We learned that they have a lot of people that come to the door that are turned away for services because their income levels may be too high. Even farm workers, recognizing it's a low paying occupation. But when you look at federal standards, the federal government views our farm workers in California as being paid higher wages. So they do not qualify oftentimes when they come to the front door of the CBOC because of their existing farm worker wage. The county made $1 million investment and we said, go train as many people as you can with this $1 million and you can ignore the federal rules and train the people that come to your farm. So that's what we're trying to do in our partnership with CBOC. They report out on a quarterly basis and you can, if you monitor our agendas, you'll see the reports quarterly on their progress, but very, very excited for that partnership with them.
Jody, I have one question really quick. Is CBOC the only one offering what you just said right now?
I think there are a lot of entities that certainly have interest and promote themselves as supporting the farm worker community specifically. No one has the track record CBOC has. I'd be very surprised to learn someone did.
The county is partnering with, or at least Doris's workforce in some segment of this with the Farm Bureau too. They're doing some trainings for you. Is that
Yeah,
interconnected?
Even prior to us making this investment through Stanislaus 2030, we already had some efforts underway that involved other partners as well. But this was a very targeted thing from 2030, which is why we kind of highlighted this process. And those other efforts are nowhere near.
Right.
Yeah, this was our big push. Okay, I feel like I'm gonna run out of time.
You have 15 minutes, so
15 minutes. Okay, so we're gonna land this plane and do some Q&A. Trish mentioned Beam Circular and Karen Warner. The other lane that we are working in on 2030 is an entirely new industry around bioindustrial manufacturing and the circular bioeconomy. Everything I was sharing with you today so far is always exciting to me, and I'm so proud of the brilliant people who figured this stuff out, because I'm telling you, it wasn't me. I'm literally just the cheerleader for this. This particular thing is, to me, it is one of the most exciting things I've been a part of in my career, to be honest with you. To watch the potential for an entire new industry take root and then take off is incredible. So the county has made a $10 million pledge to this effort. We've kind of did doing the same thing, been doing some pilot work, testing some things. And then Karen will be back to our board the next few months for the additional request to say, how are we going to spend $10 million to do this? Karen's not waiting for us. She has already gone out and raised over $6 million on her own with state, federal, and private funding. So you know you have a really, really good idea when you get money from the feds, the state, the county, and private business that are writing you checks. And that's what's going on with this, because it is seen as potential for not just a game changer of our local economy, but for an economic viable products for private industry. She's already got private industry looking to relocate here, just based on the initial work that's been done. And the big thing that we're watching is that she is leading and guiding. Well, she has a team of 9 people, so it's not just her anymore. But it's incredible. And these are like very, very talented folks. She's employed a bunch of chemical engineers and folks that are working full-time every day on this effort. And they are out building a proposal for the National Science Foundation. She received an initial grant from them to develop what's called the Type 1 proposal. This is part of the Federal Chips and Science Act. So you've probably heard of that, but it has hundreds and hundreds of millions, it's actually billions of dollars that they're putting out to support the brightest and best technological ideas in our country, to support the future economy. So they funded, like there were only a handful of locations, probably I think it was like 30 or 40 in the country that got funded. And Beam Circular was funded to develop a type one, with a type one grant to develop what's called a type two proposal. I'm twisting all of my words just to tell you, the type two proposal, it's like $160 million investment. So right now, there are almost 10 people over here. They currently today work in the Building with Opportunity. Stanislaus OS has been a huge partner with us. They've been incubating them from a fiscal perspective, having them live in their home with them and everything. But every day they're coming to work trying to develop a proposal to bring in over $100 million of investment into this community based on the 2030 Blue Grant and a future circular bio. So that's Beam Circular. Karen could talk for an hour and a half by herself and she wouldn't have enough time. I would encourage you, if you ever are interested, to have her up and she'll describe to you what she's doing as well. I am going to pivot and then hopefully we have a few minutes for Q&A. Thanks for coming. I told you at the beginning, the passion, economic development and housing. So while we were building and landing this plane, I feel like we built it, we landed it, now we're refueling and it's going to take off and do whatever it does. We also we made our best effort to say, well, what can we do about housing? It's very difficult from the county lens because we're not going to build a bunch of housing in the unincorporated area. We actually have anti-growth measures that say that. Measure E was passed in this community many, many years ago that says, we're not going to go just build random subdivisions in Stanislaus County. You know, from a technical perspective, we can still build out Salida, we can still do some infill projects, and I think we still have some community plans around there, things like that. But for the most part, and as it should be, housing development should be in the incorporated cities, right? So that's what the voters have said, and that's what it'll be. So it's not as if our 5 county board members are gonna, you know, put forward strategies and make a huge dent in housing and so forth. The cities are where developers are doing their work to go in and, you know, figure out, is this where I want to make investment and deliver? So what we did is we put together a project called Housing Stanislaus, and I'm going to pass around copies of this as well. You all have it. And
There you go.
you can actually sit there. This is easy. Start here, then go over here. And then the copies will be in the middle.
Right, that's true.
But I appreciate the level of attention you provide. So here's what we did. We just tried to make this as simple as possible. You know, who in our community could help inform us as to what are the best strategies, what's happening with housing development, and then what are the best strategies to address them. So half of this report tells you what you already know, but it's important to document it. And that is what housing has been built or not built in our case over the last decade or so. And you can see all of the data. This is your source document to tell you what's going on with the lack of housing development in Stanislaus County. So this will tell you, after the recession, we basically stopped building homes. And we've really suffered for that. So the rest of the document is us asking 2 different groups of folks. What are the problems that you see and what suggestions do you have to fix those problems? So the groups that we highlight here are our professional community development staff. So these are people in the cities, the planning directors, their staff. It's, you know, the folks who really understand from a, at least public sector lens, how housing gets developed, how communities develop out. We ask them, what are the challenges and what are the solutions? And you'll see them in there. And then the next one we asked was the housing development. We asked the private sector, you tell us, where do you see the problems and what do you think those solutions are? So I'm very, very pleased that we were able to put all of this information in one place for everybody to see. I'll be honest with you, and the plan is going forward is that our planning directors kind of own the follow-up to this in some way. But this really is for community follow-up. It's not something that, like I said, our 5 board members can make anything out of here necessarily happen. But we would plan to update these statistics on an annual basis going forward. So you'll see additional reports. We'll do housing summits in the future. We did one late last year when we talked about all of these things as well. But the reflection I just have to admit to you is when we built the Stanislaus Investment Blueprint, we had people come from all over the community and say, I want to be in that room. I want to talk to you about this. Here's my idea. what can I do to be a part of the solution? And then once it was built, we've had a lot of people, you just heard me read off all these employers, all these local organizations that have said, yes, I'm going to help you with your development, with the implementation of these ideas. The housing conversation, it does not generate that same level of interest. And I can't tell you why. I'm just telling you that's a fact. Because I've lived it and I've tried to not just me personally, but we have tried to stimulate conversations on what's the reality check with housing. And I think the answer inevitably always comes back to it will organically happen as the developers decide that it makes economic sense to build a home in Stanislaus County. That's pretty much the answer. So once they're done building closer to the Altamont Pass, they'll come this way. That's generally the answer. And I'm generalizing. I hope won't be in the newspaper here or anything. But we actually think that there's conversation beyond that. One of the things that if you really wanted to dive in here and learn more about and get interested in is a concept around missing middle housing. That's a huge issue. And here's the simple explanation. Go to the center of Modesto and go out and look at what a neighborhood looks like. Go right over here next to Crusader North. You'll see single family home next to like a duplex, next to like a 4, 5, 6, 8-plex, whatever they call those. It's all mixed in together, right? And the neighborhood doesn't look bad. It's, but somehow in our minds, a few decades ago, we decided that every neighborhood had to just have single family homes. So you go out and you start to see development. And I will tell you, Modesto's done better at this than many other communities. Even in newer areas, you're going to see multifamily housing kind of scattering in. But I mean, you've all probably read some of the same articles I've read where local cities, where they're trying to permit an apartment complex, and you have city council members saying, no, I'm not going to build that apartment complex in this community. And the interesting thing about that is many of those council members lived in an apartment at some point in their life, but they just don't want one built to them. So missing middle housing is a real conversation, and that's actually a political issue for local elected officials to think about how they view their community's development in the future and how they can actually improve their community by embracing missing middle housing instead of demonizing it like it has been, at least for the last couple decades. So that's my pitch on housing. 5 minutes for Q&A on any topic related to Stanislaus.
I had one chat question. Is this on your website or?
It is, and
somewhere?
I had sent a link over to whoever was helping me with today's.
On my site?
presentation. Yeah, I sent
Steven?
over a link and it's, so it's housingstanislaus.org is the website, and then Stanislaus 2030 something, it's super easy to find, but housingstanislaus.org, and you'll find the report right up.
Does anyone have any more questions?
I have a quick comment and then a question for you, Jody. First of all, I love the passion that you're bringing to this, and I miss seeing you in the hallway because you're so excited about what you do for our communities, and it's just so moving and touching. So good job. But I also wanted to say specifically on the childcare thing, I love that so much. And I think it's that out of the box thinking really that sets Stanislaus County apart from other communities across the state. And I was thinking about all the moms I know, and so many of us, had kind of a mom guilt about leaving our kids when we were young. And that's a very common thing. It's a cultural thing. But I think for moms who want to stay home with their kids to know I could bring other kids into my household and make money at it is a really, really beautiful thing. So that's exciting. And then my other question on the traded sector jobs and all of that economic development thing is, I'm just curious if you can speak to what is happening with Crow's Landing Industrial Business Park, because that opportunity is huge.
It's almost like I paid him to ask me. 20 plus years ago, prior leadership in the county was really smart about taking advantage of an Air Force base that was closing, that was operated by NASA at the time, out of Crow's Landing. So we've had this property for a long time now. It's taken a long time to get it conveyed over to the county and so forth, but we own almost an entire 1,500 acre piece of land out there with an airport on it. And we have built a specific plan to turn that into an industrial business park. It's very, very exciting. We've had some different time periods of master developers that have come in and said, hey, we're going to develop this and we're going to and they've kind of fizzled out, to be honest with you. We're not into fizzle anymore. Like this thing is on, it is prime time, ready to roll. Our ARPA funds, that the county received, we put 12 million of our ARPA funds into it. County's already spent or dedicated about 20 million general funds to this project. By the time this thing has its first, employer, we will have county probably spent 35 to 40 million dollars of investment in this project. Very, very excited for it. We think we'll recoup that over the long time. This is a long-term play for us. So we're willing to make those investments. The first piece that you're going to see is we've partnered with the Crows Landing Community Service District, who's responsible for water infrastructure out there in their little town of Crows Landing. And we've partnered with them to improve their water system and be able to pump water over. You can't build anything unless you have water and so forth. So we're pretty much there. So we're going to be putting pipes in the ground pretty soon. Water will be flowing, and where water flows, jobs grow. Right? That's still that in my deal.
So Erica Ignacio will be presenting on this in June, right? At our EDC
Erica
meeting.
Ignacio from my office. Yeah, she's
coming to
she's the
EDC to
quarterback.
present.
Okay, excellent. She's our new quarterback.
Councilmember Ricky has a question for you, sir. Go ahead, Chris.
Thank you.
You next.
Yeah, my question, in terms of the development is, it's really the issues we're having are really kind of twofold. You've got really high interest rates that make it hard for developers to build a lot of units at once. And then developers need, to make profits, right? And I think the thing that we need more than anything else is kind of affordable capital to, so that people can build easier, right? So what I think the communities could use is some kind of like development bank that's designed to generate homes at like the 300K range, because that's what we're really missing right now. Do you think something like that's doable?
There's a whole effort, by the way, hi, Councilmember, nice to see you. Sorry, you're behind me on my screen, but there's a whole conversation underway right now around housing land trusts. We actually had an expert in this speak at our Housing Stanislaus Summit probably 4 or 5 months ago. I'm interested to see where that goes. I don't really know the answer to your question because I don't know that anyone's proven the economics of, a $300,000 house, but we have seen some models, particularly I think San Luis Obispo County, I think is the one where there's a housing trust that was established within the community there that has proven to be pretty successful. But basically it's generating a capital asset that you can use a couple of different ways to either bank land for development or to try to just kind of clear the path for easier investment. And then you take your capital back out on the back end and go invest somewhere else. So I'm not the best person to explain it. I want to believe that the answer to your question is yes. I want to believe that. And I think the groups that are having a conversation locally will prove that to us soon if they can.
Yeah, that sounds right. It hasn't been done before. You're totally correct. But we've got some pretty great groups locally, and great cooperation with cities like ours that really want to we're motivated to make this happen, because right now, it's absurd that a 1-bedroom apartment is $1,600, right? Like how do you afford that? That's why we have so many homeless. Like our homeless issue is like at least 50% economic based, so anyway, I appreciate your openness to maybe considering something like that.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for you and all your other council members' leadership on housing issues, because I think Modesto has done a good job of this, to be honest with you. They're doing pretty well.
You have the question over here?
Yeah, so this stuff is great. The childcare and all that stuff is good. So when we talked about earlier about like ongoing funding from the state for homelessness and stuff like that, where are these funds coming? Are they ARPA funds you're using? And what are you gonna do down the road when that money dries out? Or if it does?
So almost all of our investment strategy, our proposition for the use of ARPA funds, we did not want to just do like one-time grants and do something where there'd be a cliff on the back end. There's like the CVOC project is one where we flunk that test. It's like, look, there's a bottleneck. people can't get in, we're gonna pay for people to get in for a few years. And on the back end, there's no funding, there's no additional funding. So I admit in that project, but almost everything else you'll see us invest in with our ARPA funds, we're planting a seed expecting some growth down the road. And actually, I could argue even with the CBOC funds, if you take all of those people that have increased wages from $6,000 to $12,000, that's ongoing growth for them as well as in the future. But I guess I'm just pointing out, I always try to be transparent. We don't want to just bring on some service level and then take the service level away again in the future. So everything we're trying to work on is sustainable. It's all like, no, this is going to have legs. It's going to continue to work. The childcare product, you'll see, it actually has a 10-year capital stack that shows the ARPA funds in the first 2 years, and the ARPA funds go away, and then where we go from there. They actually assume a lot about getting other county funds from workforce development. But the truth is, workforce development has some funds available that are unspent. So they're just finding ways to go find where's money that's not being spent today. So I think most of everything we're doing has great sustainability to it, but time will tell. And I will be retired by then and I won't be accountable for the results.
We have one more question. Kelly, would you like to go ahead and ask?
Yes, thank you. And Jody, I'm so sorry I couldn't be there in person today. I really wanted to have been there. You just touched upon the child-based businesses, and I'm personally fascinated by the data that's been produced through the Brookings study. And I just wonder, how is the need for those child-based businesses and the funding opportunity that's available through those underspent funds being marketed within the county?
So in our pilot, when you read the report, you'll see exactly how we marketed for the pilot. And it was testing, like they did multiple tests. I mean, they wound up like out at what I just call the flea market out on Coe's Landing, right? And literally doing surveys, testing, trying to get entrepreneurs to sign up. They wound up most recently with like one of our high need zip codes is Ceres. So they partnered with the city of Ceres. Ceres has a wonderful communication infrastructure for their parents. So they literally did like backpack stuffers for kids and stuff, and they got immediate hits there. So you're going to see from a marketing perspective, it's very like just ground-based marketing. They had some fascinating stories with us about how when they got out into the community, what they learned. You do a survey and you ask somebody, do you have a problem with childcare right now? And they'll say, no, I don't have a problem with childcare. And they go, oh, okay. But then you ask a couple more questions and you find out, well, the person's staying at home with their child. And if they had childcare, they would go, you'd say, if you had safe and affordable childcare, would you remain home with your child? And they say, no, I'd love to go to work and I have a job, but I just can't do it. So the answer to your question is when you read the report, you're going to see some of the very, very specific, like just ground-based marketing that was done for that program. Again, it was just a pilot. So, we weren't trying to market across the entire county to get, hundreds of people. We were trying to fill the pilot to see where we could go there. And we specifically wanted to work in the zip codes that were of highest need. And I want to tell you how they found those zip codes. It was by figuring out from the census population, how many adults were how many adults were at home that were not working that could be working. So they were targeting those areas, underemployed or unemployed folks.
Got it. Thank you so much, so that we're aware of everyone's time. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. It was great.
I'll stick around if anybody has any specific questions you want to grab me for on the round. Thank you, guys.
And I know on announcements, I know that that's a great question. Okay.
Last night, myself and I went to this meeting as a member of the planning commission. A couple of city council people were there. Kelly from the mall was there, and it was on the Stanford presentation, and which led me to a question that I have for you and for this group, because the city engineer Kobe mentioned that the potential funding of $150 to $200 million would a major portion of that would come from Measure L. And my head immediately went to Measure L because we, the chamber, were very instrumental in getting that passed back then. I don't recall that me doing the overpasses that stand for Hanover Bridge were part of Measure L's proposal to the voters. All of us know that Standard needs a new configuration. But it dawned on me that we've not had, either from the city or the county, we've not had an update of Measure L. We had Measure H here at the last meeting, which was a more recent passage, but Measure L, we haven't gotten anything. And the original proposal or thought, or promise, was that Modesto would get every street in the 25 years of the life of that would get paid 3 times. And there are streets 7 years into this thing that haven't been paid once yet. And yet we're earmarking, a major amount of money. And Julie, I say this to you because actually the county controls the money from that sales tax. And then the city gets its portion. But you guys are the overseers of all of that. So somewhere, I think we're owed a presentation understanding of where is Measure L, what were the original promises, what has been spent, and primarily for us is the city, but also the whole county. Because it is all under economic development. And so, anyway.
Yeah, so what we could do on the next time is that's a great question. We're thinking about maybe we can set up something.
And for clarification, the controls of STANCOG, separate agency,
Okay.
like the conglomerate agency.
Right.
Where the county does have people who sits on STANCOG, but we're not controlling all the measures.
So-
Just wondering.
But it's sales tax money.
Yes, I understand that. So, but there should be a full presentation.
Right, so that's what we'll do. We'll
So-
go ahead and,
Rosa presented here 6 to 8 months ago. We
Okay.
can invite her back again. We have one board member sitting on the advisory for Measure L. and She recently gave us just a couple of comments, but not a full, we haven't, it's been,
right,
Well, we
9
have
months
we have a
maybe.
really good presentation on it.
right.
And I think you need something thorough, H.
I agree.
Rosa came.
Yeah, and we'll get to that,
So
but
we'll invite her back.
everyone's got to get going. So we just want to say thank you also Stanislaus County and the co-chair for the wonderful lunch from Wildfire Public House. And
Ellen said
then,
hello to you specifically.
Oh, very nice.
and then also next month, April, it looks like it's a co-ed EDC. We'll be talking about the Stanislaus 2030.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so,
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to.
yeah, no, you did a great
Different-
job.
That'll be different perspective.
Right, so it looks like we're gonna go ahead and adjourn. It's 12:10. So thank you
Jody,
so
thank you.
much.
Thank you.